Everybody, thanks for tuning in to this YouTube. Now, I'm recording this after the 49ers have made their first seven picks of the 2025 NFL draft. So we're bringing you up to date on what they've done. And I'm sure a lot of you will be wondering about what they haven't done. But first, this video is brought to you by Canyon Club Brewery, located in Moraga with a new location just opening up at the Livery in Danville. It is a phenomenal space. They have all the beer selection items that you would like, tasty menu items as well. It's just a great place to hang out. Canyon Club Brewery in the Livery in Danville. I'm going to make it definitely one of my go-to stops as far as when I'm in that area. Also, it's located right down the street from where I live in Moraga. So I check that place out quite regularly. Canyon Club Brewery. Tell them I sent you. Okay, so let's just go probably for the first question that you have is why haven't the 49ers selected an offensive lineman? And, do the 49ers have a need to improve on the offensive line? Of course they do. But was that player available that could step in this season and play? Probably not. I mean, think about it. When the 49ers went on the clock with their 11th overall pick, it was pretty clear that they weren't focused on offensive line at that point. They wanted a defensive lineman and edge rusher. It's pretty clear that Mykel Williams was the guy that they had targeted. And up to that point, also, um, Will Campbell had already been drafted, Armand Mimbu had been drafted, and Kelvin Banks. And so, they certainly weren't going to take Tyler Booker or any other offensive lineman at that spot. What I've seen through this draft is it just kind of seems to be like this dead zone of very few offensive linemen being taken, and the guys who are being taken here at the end of day two and also uh, into day three, just not the high caliber players, probably the more project players. So the 49ers, as of this time right now, they do still have three draft picks remaining. I would think that they would take a flyer on an offensive tackle, or an offensive lineman in general. But it's very clear that they weren't going to reach and just take a player at a position to take a player at a position. So I know they're probably going to receive some backlash for that for not addressing the offensive line. But I think that, if you've been watching me and reading our stuff at NBC Sports Bay Area, listening to me and Jennifer Lee Chan, I think you have a good idea that the 49ers aren't as down on their offensive line as maybe a section of the fan base is. They do have, four of the starters are in place with Trent Williams, with Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, and Colton McKivitz. And the one spot where they do have an opening is a left guard with Aaron Banks moving on in free agency, but they feel like they have enough players there where they can fill in that spot and maybe not lose all that much with Ben Barch, with Nick Sigle, with Spencer Burford, and maybe even Matt Hennessy. But where the 49ers, you could say, they haven't what they haven't done up to this point is it's not so much about this upcoming season, but it's about looking down the road, getting offensive line help for the future, for the depth. One thing they don't have right now is a swing tackle, a backup tackle on both sides. Maybe that'll be Spencer Burford. He's a player that ended the season last year in that role. As he was a guard for his first couple seasons in the NFL last year. They moved him to tackle. So that would be the one area where, maybe even interior offensive line help. Again, I know that Jake Brendel isn't seen as from the fan base as a high caliber starting center in the league, but the 49ers seem to like him and they think that he grades out very favorably against offensive other centers in the NFL. Okay, so let's just go through the 49ers draft. I'll just kind of brush over the first uh, four guys that they selected: Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, Nick Martin, and Upton Stout. So it was defense, 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 defense with the 49ers picks in the first 2 days of the draft. Well, guess what? When the fourth round started, it was more defense, getting a defensive tackle, CJ West from Indiana. I mean, this guy is kind of out of the mold of Alfred Collins. big defensive tackle. And here's what he says. He says, my bread and butter is at the one technique. So the one technique is the defensive lineman that lines up on the outside shoulder of the center. He says that's where I just abuse centers, punch them in the face, be as violent as possible, and just cause havoc. So CJ West taken in the fourth round, adding to that 49ers defensive line, jumping in there with Mykel Williams and with Alfred Collins. And when the 49ers, when you look at their depth there, now all of a sudden they've really replenished that depth after losing Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, and Leonard Floyd. So all of a sudden that defensive line, a pretty dramatic makeover. And you would expect that Williams, Martin, and West would all be rotational players, and maybe two of those guys be starters out of this draft right here. Okay, so then in the fourth round, the 49ers added to their wide receiver room with the selection of Jordan Watkins from Ole Miss, a good solid receiver, some slot versatility. And when you think about where the 49ers need some help at the wide receiver position, um, they might need an immediate contribution from Jordan Watkins, or at least the door is wide open for him to make a contribution with Deebo Samuel no longer on the team, traded to the Commanders. Brandon Ayuk's knee situation remains to be seen if he'll be ready to go at the start of the regular season. And then also Demarcus Robinson, the free agent pickup from the Rams. There's some uncertainty with him as far as if he'll be available for the first 3 games of the season. He is subject to a 3-game discipline for violating the league's policy on substances of abuse. He had a DUI arrest late in the season with the Rams. Okay, so wide receiver, 49ers take Jordan Watkins, and he'll fit in there with Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, and the others I mentioned to see if he can get some playing time. In the fifth round, Jed York foreshadowed the selection of Jordan James, a running back from Oregon, by saying that Frank Gore gave him his stamp of approval. So Jordan James, not a real fast guy, 4.55 speed, but a one cut and get up the field runner, seems to fit very well in the 49er system. So Jordan James comes in, the Oregon running back, and he'll be behind Christian McCaffrey and at least initially behind Isaac Guerendo. So he'll see if he can work his way into the mix to get some playing time in that offense. And then in the fifth round, 49ers went back to defense, selecting safety Marques Sigle from Kansas State. This is a guy that started his college career at North Dakota State, was a teammate of Trey Lance, by the way, and he finished up at Kansas State. Now, he's got some tremendous speed and tremendous versatility. So, he has played cornerback, he has played free safety, he's played strong safety, he's played nickel back, he's played dime back. So I think the attractiveness for the 49ers getting Marques Sigle is just that there's a lot of different ways where he can be deployed in the 49ers defense. And I would also expect with his speed to be somebody that would be a core special teams player. That would probably be his ticket to get on the field. Could he end up in the starting lineup year one? That's probably a difficult ask because the 49ers do have 3 safeties with starting experience on the team. Of course, Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown, recent draft picks. And also the 49ers signed Jason Pinnock from the New York Giants. This is a guy that started 32 games over the past 2 seasons. So the 49ers have not made any trades. They've just stayed with their picks all the way through this draft, and they do have 3 picks in the 7th round coming up. So we'll see what they do there. But again, the main takeaways will be the 49ers certainly addressed their needs on the defensive line in the trenches by getting 3 guys who figure to be people who can contribute right away. They did not address their future needs on the offensive line. So we'll see what they end up doing there. But there are a couple of guys out there with big bodies, long arms, athletic, that the 49ers could choose from in the 7th round of this draft if they still remain. And then it would be a matter of, when you take a guy in the 7th round who might have all the attributes you want, maybe just lacking in strength. So that would be something where 49ers could see if they could get their Jordan Mailata, Jordan Mailata was a seventh round pick of the Philadelphia Eagles, and now he's their left tackle. Now, granted, he was new to football, so there's a little bit of different circumstances there, but we'll see if they can get somebody at the offensive line position here in the seventh round. But the takeaway is, as we've been saying all along, 49ers, and I think the stats bear this out, 49ers don't see the offensive line as being such a dire need, especially when you look at who they could have picked, where they could have picked them. And there just weren't a whole lot of answers, I think, for the offensive line in this draft. So again, rather than reaching and getting a player at a position where they might need some help, but maybe a player that they're not convicted on, they've decided to hit other spots. And very clearly, this was the Robert Saleh draft with five defensive players selected with their five first picks. And 49ers have not done that since 1981. 1981, so the first Super Bowl season when Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, Carlton Williamson, and others were among those five players the 49ers selected on defense in the 1981 draft. Yeah, and they ended up winning their first Super Bowl. So not a real pertinent correlation there, maybe, but it's kind of shows how unique this is that the 49ers addressed one side of the ball and only one side of the ball through their first five picks. All right, thank you again for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a rating. Or whatever it's called, leave a like and a comment. And I'm sure you might have some comments about the 49ers plan of attack in this draft to focus on the defense, and then so far the only offensive players that they've selected are playmakers, a wide receiver and a running back.